thanks for coming to your practice today. Thanks for taking this time to nurture yourself and bring yourself into balance and find therapeutics for your body, mind, and spirit. Let's just bring our hands right away into a big T. Take a big deep breath. Exhale it. I'll let go. And we'll do 2 more of those. So inhaling deeply as if you could just inflate your whole body. And then exhale. 1 more like that. Inhaling. On your next inhale, bring your arms up overhead. Turn your palms away from you. Reverse namaste if you can. Now, if you can't do that, don't worry about it. Just have your hands apart, but palms face out. If you can, the elbows can be bent, and you just begin to press gently into your hands and drop the shoulders backwards. See if you can feel what that means. Drop the shoulders backwards. Let them drop into the back plane of the body. As you're letting them relax backwards, soften your frontal ribs down and in. Let the sternum start to drop in as if it could point to the belly button. Take another breath. And then as you exhale, just bring the elbows down by your sides as if to tap your ribs, and then inhale them back up again. We'll begin to do that with the breath, but we're going to speed the breath up so it goes inhale, exhale. And then you just continue to speed that up, inhale, exhale. And this gentle tapping of the elbows on the ribs there helps stimulate the immune system through the lymph nodes in the armpit. So you inhale, exhale. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release them down. Just let those arms settle into your lap. Close your eyes. Feel all that energy beginning to come into your body. Tip your hips gently forward so that you feel like you're sitting more on the front edge of the sitting bones. And so you feel the lumbar spine moving in and up. We want to get the sense that there's this trickle up of that lumbar spine. So as it moves in and up, the energy starts to trickle up the body into the upper palate of the mouth. The lower belly draws in and up, and we get long through the side body. Beautiful. Blink open your eyes. Take your left hand to the side of your body. Take your right arm, sweep it up overhead, turn your palm face out. Inhale, shrug the shoulder so you really get into those ribs on the right side there. 1 more time. You press down with the left hand, you shrug the right shoulder, and you breathe into those intercostals like you could inflate them like bellows. And then gently come out of it and release. Roll the shoulders, take a cleansing breath. Second side, the right hand drops out. I'm on tippy fingers there. We inhale the left arm up to the side. Turn the palm face away. Go ahead and press down with the right hand. Shrug with the left shoulder and feel those intercostals, those spaces between each ribs. And once again, you drop the left thigh down and you shrug the shoulder up, and like bellows, you breathe into those ribs. Beautiful. And release that. Take your legs out in front of you and just wiggle them around. We're going to come into cat-cow, and then we're going to move into a brief restorative onto our backs. So tuck your toes in. So hopefully you have some nice props, some blocks and blankets and things to support you today. Let's come onto our hands and knees with our toes tucked under, and let's take our hands and turn them towards our knees so the fingertips point towards you, and you're just going to gently rock forward and back, just gently stretching out the palm, taking your time, inhaling and exhaling. At the same time, you're getting a gentle pumping action behind the knees, which is good, again, for immunity. You've got a group of lymph nodes there behind the knees, so you're just pumping them encouraging that lymphatic flow. Such an important part of your immune system. We can't do enough for our immune system right now. One more breath. Beautiful. And then very gently peel those hands up, bring them into fists and open them. Fist and open, fist and open. We call this sparkling, and you can sparkle overhead. Good. And then you're going to bring your hands back down and make little fists, and make little, what could be called begging fists. So you feel like a T-Rex or something, and you just squeeze like you're trying to take your own pulse. So you're trying to get those fingertips down into your inner wrists, and you squeeze that. One more breath there. Beautiful. Release that. Roll the wrists around. Let's come onto hands and knees for cow-cat. Toes are tucked. Inhale. We shrug the shoulders and start to look up. Drop the chest down. Sitting bones back and apart. Exhale. Press the floor down and forward in cat tilt. Pulling the belly in and up. Think of that same shrug for the intercostals even here. Like you could breathe through them. And then release that. And as you inhale again, take cow. And then exhale, cat. Inhaling to cow. And exhaling to cat. Go ahead and roll the hips around. I call this dancing cat-cow. So there's still the cat-cow shape, but the hips are drawing like an elliptical oval, or I know it's not a circle, but an elliptical shape in the sky behind you. Good. And try going the other way. You just get a lot of movement, and I like to really slow this one down so I feel where I'm sticky or tight. One more. Beautiful. And then come on down and go ahead and sit in Vajrasana as you bring your blankets close. We'll take our blankets and we're going to move from pillow fold to half pillow fold in the short way, or so that you take the folded edge to the fringe edge and you make a narrow fold. We're going to do the same thing with the second blanket, and we'll stack that blanket on top. You'll bring those two blankets onto your mat so that the long edge is parallel to the long edge of the mat. And you're going to have a block just in case you need it. You'll sit in front of the block. And here's one more little thing. This is optional today, but if your back gets tender, here's a nice way to start to shift it, is with the inner spiral. So if you take a strap and you make a small loop and then you step into that loop, like you're putting on trousers, or a skirt probably is more like it, and then you take that loop on the very center line of your thighs, and you cinch it like you're cinching up a horse's saddle. You want to cinch it pretty tight there. And then you scoot up your booty to the edge of that blanket, and when you've got that nice and tight and it's keeping your legs inner rotated and your feet pointed straight up to the sky, then you grab a block and you start to lay down onto your bolsters, and if you need, you've got that extra block to place underneath your head. And arms go out in T. And then you can just relax there, and the blocks and the blankets are doing a little back bend work for you, which is going to nourish the spine. When we move into the back bend shape, which is opposite from most of what we do in our lives, right, is that it sends more oxygen, more movement into the front edge of the spine and nourishes the discs. And so you just take a big deep breath. Now if this feels like it's too much on the low back, you just take your hands, reach them underneath your booty, fingertips pointing towards your heels, and you just scoop the flesh down. So So it's like you're lengthening out the lower back a little bit. And then you try it again. And you can do that 2 or 3 times until you get to that place where you're comfortable. And we can just be here for a few moments. If you want to add a little more immunity, immunity practice, you take your arms overhead, you grab your opposite elbow. You're going to have to snuggle them around the block a little bit. And it just opens up the space of the lymph nodes underneath the armpit. And you just breathe. If there's anything uncomfortable, try to fix it by either dropping seat, tucking under the tail, dropping the frontal ribs, letting yourself rest deeply onto your support systems. And let yourself start to really arrive, or really take in the support that's underneath you, and let your body rest deeply. I always think it's interesting that I have to sort of convince my body that it's supported. I suppose that's the same thing we have to do with our minds, and why yoga is such a potent practice. Is as we learn that we have the support that we need, then our mind can rest out too and know that we have everything that we need. We have enough. One more breath in this configuration. And to make it very simple, you're just going to notice which arm is on top and which arm is underneath if you're doing the arms overhead clasp. And you just make a switch. Otherwise, you just stay here. And one nice thing about having that block underneath your head is that the arms frame it, and it acts like a gentle little shoe opener. You know those stretchers that you put in shoes just to stretch the leather? It's like that little block is like a stretcher for your shoulders, very gentle. Just starts to open up that space between the shoulders. Send your breath up and down the spine to wherever it's tight. Another couple big, deep, full breaths. I usually notice when I really start to release and let go, the breath comes naturally bigger. Beautiful. Last breath. Good. Very gently, if you took your arms up overhead, gently release them and kind of reverse snow angel, bring them down. You're going to bend your knees one at a time as best you can and find that loop and just uncinch it, unclasp it, and see if you can step out from underneath that block, that strap. You're going to shift your hips off to the side a little bit. I'll make it easier for you. And you're just going to lie down so that the side of your body is next to those blankets. I'm actually not lying down, I'm sitting up so that the left hip is right near the blankets. And then you just very gently turn, press both hands on the sides of the blanket. I'm going to make sure that my thigh here that's against the blanket is perpendicular. It's nice and square. And then I'm going to start to lay down so that the front side of my body is resting. And I can place 2 hands there and just rest the side of my head. And we'll just get a nice gentle twist here. Again, nourishing for the spine. As we breathe into anything that's tight, we breathe in movement and flow and space. Big, deep breaths as if we were in a cadenced yoga class where that each inhale you inflate and each exhale you deflate, or you extend and compress the pose. You can even sigh and let go of sound. Noticing where you feel the stretch. Got a couple more breaths. And very gently look down at the floor. Plant the hands, push them down, and see if you can roll up through the spine. I'm going to take my bolsters and just shift them to the other side so I don't turn my back to you, but you can just turn and shift your hip if you'd like. So now your right hip is against the bolster and your right thigh is perpendicular. You're really like touching that right hip there, and then you face the bolster, you press down, lift up, and you start to bow forward so that your belly, or the right side of your belly, is on the bolster. That you're resting your right forehead on your hands, and you're just breathing here. And again, nourishing the body through the breath, nourishing anything that's tight. Cadence breath, keep that breath steady. Breathing in through the low spine. Couple more breaths here. Last breath. Beautiful. Press your hands down, plant them down like a push-up, roll up through the spine. You're going to take this stack of blankets and just move it back a little bit so it's more towards the back left edge of your mat. We're going to be coming into a lunge, so if you can, grab your right thigh and swing it forward so you're standing on your right foot. I'm going to take my knee, the back knee, and it's going to be off the bolsters so that the bolsters press down on the lower part of the thigh and just push it back a little bit. So it's a little bit of a supported lunge. You're going to turn the right foot out to about 2 o'clock, and you're going to walk your hands to the left. And you just breathe here. Now, if this is enough for you, just stay and feel that stretch. If you want, you can also walk down onto your forearms. Those could also be on blocks. So there's, just a few ways to do this pose. But the pile of blankets here is keeping that thigh from just dropping to the floor. It's keeping it up a little bit, which is really good for the low back, to keep that thigh moving towards the back plane. And I want you to take a moment and drop your shoulders back. Now I know that we're face down, so that's a little bit awkward, but can you imagine that they just drop to the back plane of the body? And then you make sure that the neck is an extension of your spine. Take a couple more breaths here. Last breath. Walk your hands down, come on up. You're gonna stay there. You're just going to flex the front foot and bring that front leg straight. So now it looks like runner's lunge. And you've got these nice blankets. You could add a block. Maybe you can get your left forearm on the block. You press the front heel down. You bring energy back, and you see if you can split apart the sitting bones. It's like you kind of flare them back and apart. Pull the belly in and up and see if you can get a stretch there. Flexing that foot strongly, you'll get into that hamstring. One more breath. And then just come forward into a lunge, and then a couple rocks back and forth just to get some movement. Forward into a lunge, back into runner's lunge. Breathing in, breathing out. Let's go for 2 more. Pumping energy and stretch into the legs. Okay, we're coming out of that. We're gonna just kind of walk or swing or struggle that right leg back. You can tuck your toes under and just move that bolster off to the right. Okay, and now your right knee can tuck up behind those bolsters, and best you can use your hand, your left hand, to swing that left leg through to a lunge. And then you turn the toes out to about 10 o'clock. And that blanket pile is pressing into the thigh to keep the thigh from just dropping and down and descending into the floor. And then you just walk your hands to the right there, either stay on straight arms, or you can go forearms, or you can bring a block in and just breathe into that lunge here. We just getting so much blood pumping and breath pumping and fluid pumping from this sweet stretch. See if you can drop your shoulders back. Drop them into the back plane of the body. So it's different than telling you to bring your shoulder blades together and down the back, which I think causes a lot of congestion and muscle tension. But when you say drop them back, there's a softness that happens that I think is really therapeutic. All right, let's come out of that pose gently. And you're gonna push right back into runner's lunge. And you've got this beautiful blanket here. You can even put a block on and flex that foot strongly. You get that stretch, and you can just rest there. If you press the if you press the left heel down and pull that energy back, you can flare the sitting bones. Makes it a little bit nicer for your lumbar spine. And you're breathing deeply and making sure that the neck is in line with the rest of the spine. One more breath. From here, we go into that sweet lunge action. So we just rock forward, inhale, and rock back, exhale. And it doesn't matter if the leg ever gets straight on the exhale. It's just like a little massage for your hips and low back. Waking up the legs to take on the action so that the back can rest out a bit. Couple more. Getting pumping into the front of those thighs where there's lots of lymph nodes up in the groin. You're gonna come on back and then swing, gather that leg around, just sit on back on your tuck toes, hands in your lap, sweep, inhale, your arms up overhead. Take the palms away from you and take reverse namaste. Pressing, elbows soft. You can do a little framing around the head. Drop the shoulders and hips to the back plane. Just let them go. Pick up the belly, the ribs, the sternum, a little bit of core effort. Head in line with the spine. And then gently release. All right, we're gonna take one of the blankets off of the other, so we only have one half roll. And you're gonna come up next to that half roll with your left knee. So like my whole left shin is framing that roll. The other leg is gonna swing forward, like we're doing runner's lunge, only this time you're gonna sit down. And you might have to futz your way around a little bit so you feel really supported by that, and you're just getting a nice stretch through the left thigh. And normally here what we do is we bow a little bit forward. We'll do that for a moment, but really what we wanna do is start to sit back so we get a stretch for the front of the body. So let's take a few moments to bow forward, hinge forward at the hips, activate the core, and feel that stretch through the hamstring. We're not dropping the head and trying to round here. We're imagining someone's got the sides of our head and they're just pulling the spine long. In fact, you can try that. You just press your hands on the side of the head and pull. Last breath here. All right, now come up to sitting and you take that other blanket and you're gonna put it back so that it's perpendicular to the first blanket, because you're gonna use that for your elbows. And then you sit on back if you can, hands on the blanket or elbows if you can. You're gonna get a nice stretch for the front of the thigh. I like to place my hands on my outer hips here. So they're just resting on the outer hips and gently pressing in together. So you're doing the work of core, and you're pressing them together, and you're slightly drawing them up towards your face. And usually that'll feel good on your lumbar spine. And then you press down through the elbows. Can you lift the heart here? So you're not only getting the thighs rooting down, you're getting a little back bend. One more breath. Beautiful. Release out of that. Plant your hands down by your sides and lift yourself up. Take a cleansing breath. That's a challenging pose, but one worthwhile to stretch out rectus femoris quad, which is a series of muscles that attach fascially up into the belly. We're going to take the other side, plus you're getting the quadriceps, stretched, and the psoas a little bit. So I'm going to turn that blanket around so the folded edge is close to the midline. And I'm going to bring the right leg underneath me and take my sitting bones back and apart. My left leg is flexed. We're going to start by hinging forward and feeling a stretch through that left leg. Again, you're not letting the head just hang. You're more imagining that you could extend the spine. So you could try putting your hands on the side of your skull and just lengthening. And rest, placing the hands, and just be so satisfied with what you have today. Breathing into it. It's so good to focus on the things that are working instead of what's not working. Our mind is programmed to look at what's not working. And sometimes it's the discipline. Inhale, come on up, to see if we can focus on what is working. We're going to release back. You've got that blanket still behind you. You're going to put your elbows on it if you can. Take a moment just to feel that stretch. I'm going to take my fingers and gently push my hips inward and pull them upward.
What are you doing?
There's a kitty. And then you press down and you lift up your heart. Get a little back bend here. Try not to just throw the head back, but take the sides of the throat back as you lift up. One more breath. And gently press down. Come on up to sitting. We're going to take the blankets now again. This time we're going to put them back in the pillow fold. And we're going to roll one into a burrito roll. And we're going to roll the other one into a burrito roll. And we're going to take the first burrito roll on top of the second pillow fold and roll it around. So now we have a really thick burrito roll. I hope that all made sense. I did that kind of fast. And you're going to tuck that underneath your knees. Paschimottanasana, such a good one when the lumbar spine gets tight or we get gripping around the low back. You're going to bring your block and place it between your shins. You're going to gently pull your sitting bones back and apart. And I'm noticing that my second toes are pointed straight up. My shins are trying to stay a little bit awake on that block. I can take my second block and make a nice little tower. And I can rest my forehead on that tower. And you just make the tower as much as you can need to make it until your forehead can rest. And I just use my hands to kind of guide and check out my feet, or to give myself a little toe massage, or squeeze my toes if they're cold. Actually, it was a little cool this morning. Yeah, and I noticed my toes and fingers felt cool. So you can just gently hold them if you have that stretch. And you're just breathing up and down the spine as if to nourish it with the breath. Keep the legs with that sense of the inner block. So shin block, thigh block, action as we lengthen through the spine and breathe into the tight places. See where you can let go of tension, where you can let go of contractive thoughts, where you can bring yourself into a place of equanimity, balance, expansion. When we think of our body, mind as an energetic whole, we know that contraction is contraction, whether it's in the body or in the mind. And obviously there's times in our lives where we need those thoughts to help figure things out, but if we have them all the time, there's just no relief. And we need to take a break from those contractive thoughts and bring in expansive thoughts and feelings into the body. And that's where the breath comes in handy. Nice cadence breath in and out. One more breath. Beautiful. Plant your hands down on your feet, shins or knees, and work yourself up. We're going to do a very similar pose. This time blocks come out. The left leg goes more towards the midline, so it just moves a little bit of an inch to the right. And then we take our other leg and hug it. So I'm just going to hug my knee first into my chest and just squeeze it in tight. You can even bring the heel close to the booty with the other hand. You just squeeze everything tight. And then you're going to reach that leg over the top of the other leg until the knee is right on top of the left knee. Yep, and then you even your shoulders back out and think of evening your hips back out for a moment so that the spine comes right up in between everything. Now if you need the blocks, you can kind of play around. It's a little trickier, but you can see if you can just, you might have to hold it with your hands, but see if you can just place them in such a way that the head can rest a little bit. And now you breathe into the hips. So you've got a half Gomukhasana stretch here for those hips. Maybe just putting that leg over the top of the other one is enough for you. Sitting up straight is enough for you. If you can bow forward a little bit here, that's great too. Another couple full breaths, just breathing into anything that feels contracted. One more breath. Beautiful. And release. Come up gently. Blocks out to the side. We're going to take that leg that's across and bring it so that the ankle is on top of the knee. And you just rest there for a moment, trying to sit up tall. Nice hip stretch. This would be a version of not happy baby cradle pose. So either you stay here or you could try lifting it a little bit. Some of us will be able to put the foot into the opposite inner elbow and you just hug. Either that works for you or it doesn't. You just do what you can do. One more breath. Beautiful. Release that out. Take a pause there. Take a breath there. And then you take that right leg into the center line of the body. Bend the left knee. Hug it in as close as you can. You can even bring the heel in towards the booty. And then see if you can lengthen up through the crown. And breathe. Good. And then you're going to take that foot across. Bring the knees so the left knee is stacked right over the right. And then if you need to wiggle a little bit to find your way to set that up. And then blocks can help you just to give you something, even if you have to hold them a little bit, just gives you something to rest your head, rest your mind, so you can send the breath into those contracted areas. Big deep breath through the nose and out through the nose. You're just beautifully stretching. Maybe releasing any tension through the voice. Letting it all go, all that tension. Got another breath or two here. Beautiful, root down to rise, taking the blocks off to the side. Gently pull that knee up and that foot until the ankle sits on top of the right knee. Just for a little Sukhi Randrasana variation, you either stay here and you just work to lengthen the spine up through the crown, or if you want a little bit more, you have access to it, you can reach your arms under, you can rock it a little bit, you could place the foot on the inner elbow of the opposite arm for baby cradle. And again, you just breathe and lengthen through the crown, getting into those hips. We release our hips, we release our lower back as well often, so it's such a great place to open up when we're tight. Beautiful, and then release that all the way down. We're gonna take this burrito roll and we're gonna take the top blanket off. So we've got 2 more poses to do today. We're gonna take that top blanket off so we have a half burrito or 1 burrito roll without the double, and you're gonna come over and sit on that burrito roll. And you can glide your hips down to the floor, and then you're gonna start to roll back onto your back so that you're supported by the burrito roll. So it should feel pretty good there. We might even find that this gives you a stretch, and this is enough for you to just stay here. If you want more, you inhale and exhale and just bring your left knee into the chest. Stretch your right leg out. You want to peek up at it though and make sure, because mine likes to migrate way out to the right. So I have to peek up at it, make it honest, bring it in towards the center line, and make sure that the second toe is pointed straight up to the sky. And then my abdominals are engaged a little bit and I can release back down and just stretch. From here, I'm going to interlace my hands if I've moved on. Otherwise, just stay there where you are or add on hands behind the thighs and you just stretch the hamstrings. One thing I like about this is that little burrito roll already helps you with that lumbar curve. So you have one less thing to think about and you can just get the stretch of your hamstrings. Let's take it into the... I'm talking about lately like you're taking your toes and you're cleaning out the underside rim of a paint can. I'm just loving that analogy. Or if you wanted it not to be paint, if you want it to be frosting or honey or something really good, you could do that, because then the drip will come off your toes and the sweetness will drip right down into your body. So yogi's choice there. We need a lot of sweetness. Life is full of sour and salty. All right, gently release that. Bring your right knee into the chest. Just hug it. Let that burrito roll stretch your spine. So now you're going into a curl like a cat tilt. So let that burrito roll just help stretch the lower back. One more breath. And then hug on to that right knee. Stretch out the left leg long. Take a moment to curl up and peek at that left leg, making sure it didn't migrate left. It comes straight out from the hip.
and the second toes are pointed straight up into the sky. And just that action of curling up creates a little abdominal action, so when you lie back down, you're a little more connected, a little more engaged. Take another breath here. If you want to stay here, you can. If you want to move on, you start to stretch that right leg out. The hands come behind the thigh. And you just breathe there. Make sure that left leg is staying honest. You can always curl up and check. Gather the abdominals in, and then if you want to go ahead and clean out the under rim of the honey can, let's call it that, rather than a paint can, the underside rim of the honey jar. It reminds me of like a bear trying to get inside every nook and crevice with that long tongue. Really get into the toes, go the other way. This will help create articulation and strength through the toes and the ankles. Beautiful, release, bring both knees into the chest. Feel that curl, that rounding, stretching of the low back. Okay, from here, you're gonna lift your legs up towards the sky and try to bring that burrito roll underneath you just a little bit more. Maybe you just got another inch in. If you can, root down and try to bring it another inch in. So now it's kind of almost underneath your waist if you can. And your legs, you're in a little inversion, and your legs are overhead. You can take your arms overhead, and it's a little bit like a supported shoulder stand. And you're getting just a stretch for the whole back side of the body. Stretching all those muscles that get so tight and contracted. Let's try one more breath here. And then release. Take happy baby with the burrito roll underneath us. So you just bend the knees, bring the knees wide, like towards your outer arms or your armpits. Big deep breath. Can you find where your spine sits between these two legs? I'm always looking for opportunities for symmetry. So notice if your spine seems to jog off to the left or to the right. Use your abdominals and see if you can support it evenly towards the center line. One more breath. Mine jogs off to the left a little bit, so I need to bring in those left abdominals to swing it back right, to bring it into center line. Good. And then very gently bring your feet down. Good. And then you're just going to roll from here. Like we're going to give ourselves a little back massage. So we're going to start by rolling our hips down. It's going to feel a little uncomfortable for a moment. It's like you're trying to encourage that lumbar spine. You're trying to get the hips to the floor. And you just keep going until your hips can touch the floor. Now take your arms out in goalpost. Not going to be here for a long time, but you're working on getting the hips down. You're drawing your abdominals in and up, and you're making a really beautiful back bend with the support of the burrito. Good. And then release that. And you might have to rock left and right, but keep coming up. Like you just, I'm going to rock it all the way to the left, and then almost like windshield wiper, and then rock it all the way to the right. And then I go up one little inch, and I rock it to the left. And I rock it to the right. Oh, it's like you're getting a little massage, then up an inch, and you rock it to the left. Oh, that feels good. I happen to think groaning is really a great part of a massage and yoga practice. Come down a little bit each time. You come down 1 inch and you just roll it across that burrito roll. Keep going until you get right behind the shoulders. And then when you get right behind the shoulder blades, hopefully you've got a block within reach, and you bring that block right underneath your head, or it could be the other blanket. And I want that blanket right where the bottom tips of the shoulder blades are. And this is actually our final practice, so I would encourage you to stay here for a couple breaths, a couple minutes,
as long as it feels comfortable for you and you're getting some benefit. And again, I want you to drop the shoulders back. Whenever I tell myself that, I'm amazed that there's an unconscious pulling of the shoulders forward to the front plane. You can drop your knees in together, have your feet wide, drop your shoulders, release your shoulders and hips back. And breathe. And when you've had enough of this, then just move into Shavasana. Take those rolls out from underneath you. Lie on your back for a few minutes, maybe 5 if you can spare that. Okay. There's your 45-minute yoga practice. Thank you for sharing it with me. Namaste. Hey, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. Thanks. Namaste.